14-year-old is celebrating because earlier this year she finally learned how to snap her fingers. A couple thousand years ago, a man was walking around talking truths at people while the sun was beating down. He told them who they is, and he told them what they was. And when they asked him why, he'd answer just because. They said, you can't be serious. He said, you totally right. There's too much joy out here to sob and moan all night. He said, my Abba wants great happiness for you, for all of us is one. And they said, Abba who? He told our prodigal son how they killed the fatted calf. And when he talked about love, well, that's when Jesus laughed. On the day that Jesus laughed, the world did not collapse. The 12 disciples nodded, and the babies all took naps. And people thought how Moses floated downstream on a raft, and all the world was specialified on the day that Jesus laughed. They listened to him talk, but nobody wrote it down. They said, who's gonna care 2,000 years from now? He told them who they was, but it only stuck with some. He gave them loaves of spirit, but they only picked off crumbs. He told them about their insides, how they is full of light. And he told how worlds do turn around a widow's mite. He told them about the Beatles singing all you need is love, and that the kingdom's inside, not somewhere up above. He said you will see rock and roll. In 2 days and a half, they said, what do you mean? And that's when Jesus laughed. On the day that Jesus laughed, everything was cool. Muhammad left the mountain looking for a swimming pool. And Buddha went on weight loss. Krishna took up arts and crafts. God showed the joy in spirit on the day that Jesus laughed. And spirit's love brings smiles, unless you're completely daft. God's universe bust open wide on the day that Jesus laughed. All right, so we haven't started yet. So I got two more things to talk about before we start, because they're important. The first is I have products for sale. I'll mention it now, get it the heck out of the way. What you heard is one of the poems that I have on a 15-poem CD called Let Out the Angel, which, by the way, you will hear Let Out the Angel at the end of the talk. That Let Out the Angel has also been entered in this year's Posse Awards. And they have asked me already to come down to Orlando and plan on performing that in January. So I'm excited about that. So I have my CD, I have a framed affirmation called the Declaration of Me that showed up in a meditation about 12 months ago. And then I also have a book that is the companion book to today's workshop, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Bible. And they're all out on the table out front. If you'd like to get one or some, that's fine. The other part of the commercial is there will be a workshop today. But Pat and I are going to talk about that in a little bit. So let's talk about prosperity, abundance, all that great stuff. Prosperity and abundance are all available around you constantly. You can't get more prosperity in the universe than already exists. There is infinite opportunity for abundance and prosperity. There's infinite stuff. Everybody take a big deep breath. Go. Okay, let it go. Now when you sucked in that big deep breath, did you deprive the person next to you of oxygen? No, there's lots of it here. That's the way stuff is. There is so much stuff in the universe, you can't use it all up. Not this year. Not next year. It's there. What did Jesus say? Jesus said, that's why I started with the Jesus poem, see, because Jesus' teachings on this subject are minimal, but very important. Jesus said, I came here that you may have life and have it abundantly. Wait a minute, the second part is abundantly. So he didn't say, I want you to come here and just hang around. I want you to have life and have it abundantly. And how do we know we're supposed to have a life abundantly? Like I'm supposed to and Pat's supposed to. And what about everybody else? Well, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. That's one of the core teachings in Unity. That's the first look at the Bible I took when I first joined Unity 20 years ago. I happened to be reading through the Bible about a year later, and when I saw that, Luke 17:21, the kingdom of heaven is within you, I went, wait a minute. Has that been there the whole time? Because they've been telling me it was up that way. Some told me it was in a back room in one of the churches, you know. It's within me. So I don't have to go somewhere to go there because it's already right here. Well, then what in the world am I doing going to church on Sunday? And churches hate to hear me say that. But what you're doing here is you're learning how to get in touch with it better. But it's not out there, and it's not in this building. It's in you. It's in everything. And that was one of Jesus' 3 key teachings on the subject. The kingdom of heaven is within you. So you know how good you are. The kingdom of heaven is there. Jesus also said, has it not been said that ye are gods? Oh, he said that, did he? Yeah. And then, in all of that stuff, he also then said, and all these works that I do, ye shall do, and greater works than these shall you do. So not only am I cool, you can be even better. Now, if we aren't gods, how can we possibly hope to do things better and greater than what Jesus did? The truth is we are. Inside each of us is a piece of God, and it's the hologram. Do you remember holograms? You don't see many of them these days. Holograms are these little things in glass. And the cool thing about a hologram, well, you don't really want to break them because they cost like thousands of dollars to make. But if you broke a hologram, each piece of glass still contained the whole hologram. It's like, oh, that's cosmic. That's really neat. Well, that's what happens with God. Everything in the universe contains spirit at its core. I have friends of mine who hate to hear me talk about quantum physics, so I won't. But at your core, the entire substance of the universe boils down to spirit. And how it folds and bends and manipulates itself, and as it raises up, it becomes more and more complex matter until you show up. But at its core, you're a spirit. The kingdom of heaven is within you. All of that is within you. What have you been doing with it lately? That's where you look at abundance and prosperity, and it's not just about money. It's about how your life is. Do you have abundance and prosperity in your relationships? Do you wake up in the morning and just love life? All you need is love. Do you get that? That's what Jesus was here to teach. So he taught us that within us we are each the wholeness of God. And within the other person, within your enemy, is the wholeness of God. Not a piece of it. Not, boy, do I wish that guy would clean up his act. The whole of God is in him or her, just like it is in you. So love your enemies. Do good to those who do bad to you. So we're going to talk about three courses today. I just taught the prosperity class for SEE last week. And I teach a lot of what we call intensives in my church. The intensives are the SEE 10-hour class taught in 10 hours in 4 days. And usually I teach it twice in 1 day. So when I teach a class, I teach it for 20 hours in 4 days. I come out being able to literally quote most of the books and things like that, and people get tired of listening to me after 4 days. So we taught the class on prosperity, which features Charles Fillmore's book, Prosperity, and Eric Butterworth's book, Spiritual Economics. They're both outstanding. Each of them has certain things to say. Charles Fillmore, one of the key teachings I noticed in his teaching on prosperity, because he asked it in a question in one of his classes, he said, if you have trouble with prosperity, take a look at love in your life. Don't look to figure out where the money's coming from. Figure out what you're doing with love. Is your heart center wide open? Are you ready to share? Are you ready to be part of the world? And it doesn't sound like it would be affiliated with prosperity, but it is. Well, let's see here. What did I say? Oh, there it is, page 103. So I got a couple of quotes for you guys today. Perfect love casts out fear. Let's see, where does it start? Starts with build. Build up a positive thought atmosphere in your home, an atmosphere that is free from fear. That's hard to say, free from fear. And filled with love. There's another right there.
Do not allow any words of poverty or lack to limit the attractive power of love in your home. Select carefully only those words that charge the home atmosphere with the idea of plenty, for like attracts like in the unseen as well as the seen. So that's Charles's idea on what you're supposed to do with love in your house. And that, he says, will get you that additional prosperity in your home. So let's go to page 182. Got one more quick quote from Charles. Sometimes I actually write these down on a separate piece of paper so I don't have to do this part. There we go. The first step in getting your mind free from this giant bugaboo of lack and limitation, and I love that Charles would actually use the word bugaboo, 1936, is to get a clear perception of what your right is as a child of God. You know that you should put no other gods or powers before the true God. You know also that you should not be under the dominion of anything in the heavens above or the earth beneath, for you have been given dominion over all. You will never find a better time to come into the realization of the truth of who and what you are and what your rights are. Never was a more propitious time to seek a new and better state of consciousness if you were in fear of the boasting Philistine giant, as so many around you are, and he refers to Goliath as a symbol of the money consciousness. Then you begin now to seek a way, as did David, to give his flesh unto the birds of the heavens. That means he's going to kill it. There is a way, a righteous way that cannot fail. It is your duty to find it. Follow each step of the way that is symbolically and beautifully set forth in the 17th chapter of Samuel. And Charles lists in that book 5 steps. I won't read them to you because they take a long time to read. But it's key. So Charles also talks about tithing. Now we're going to shift Eric Butterworth down. Eric Butterworth has something different than Charles has to say about tithing. Spiritual Economics, if you have never read it, is an outstanding book. Butterworth can write. Butterworth talks more about the law of giving rather than tithing. And we're at page 169. He has something to say about churches. He says, however, the most important aspect of John 3:16 is, for God so loved the world that he gave. Now there's a rest of that sentence. But I love that he chose to stop right there, because it connects through with Charles talking about love. Because you know the rest of the sentence is, for gave his only forgotten son. No, he said, for God so loved the world that he gave. And that was God's demonstration of love to us, is that he gave. And Butterworth says churches make the mistake of talking about tithing so much that they forget to teach giving. You can teach people to knock 10% off of their incoming money and hand it to the church. But have you taught them what giving is as a spiritual experience? There's a big difference. Because when you talk about 4T and Stretton Smith, 4T means the tithing of time, talents, and treasure. It means you give of yourself from 3 directions. You give your time. You take a certain amount of your time each week and use that to get smarter about your spiritual self. The second thing is you give of your talents. You find someplace that can use your talents, the church, a charitable organization somewhere, a home for the elderly or for children, or someplace where you can give of yourself. And then the third thing is your treasure, your money. You give that to a place that spiritually feeds you. But that is all wrapped around tithing, and it's not just about your money. And Butterworth says, if you make it just about your money, you've missed the point. And he said most churches have missed the point, because it is about giving. And when you go back into that quote, God so loved the world that he gave, and you stop it right there. Oh, so what have you given lately? One of the weirdest things ever happened to me is that I've been in Unity about 2 years. I came home from church one day, and there was an envelope under my door. And written on the outside, it said, Ben has decided he needs to spend some time with you. I opened it up, and there's a $100 bill inside. Wow. I looked for a signature. I wanted to thank somebody. No signature. Now that's the ultimate in unconditional giving, is that you don't expect somebody to say thank you. You just give. If you give with the expectation of receiving a thank you back, you have put a condition on the giving. And it's not pure. The pure spiritual essence of giving is you give it without any anticipation of getting a thank you. That's the Lone Ranger attitude. He rode out of town before they could thank him. Ticked off some people. So I never did find out. I couldn't read the handwriting well enough to say I know whose handwriting that is. There was no signature. To this day, I have no idea who it was. Then it got spooky because I'm like, who knew where I lived? I lived in an apartment building. And for all, I hope it was intended for me. I hate to think it was actually intended for somebody else in my building and they put it under the wrong door because I spent it. Didn't have anybody's name on, not even mine. But that was a wonderful surprise. And one of the things that I learned too is that there were years ago when I was making about 3 times as much money as I'm making right now, but I used to lavish a lot of gifts on people at Christmas. And I would go out and spend days just buying dozens of presents and knowing that I got the right present for the right person. And I remember one year I was doing that, and I was being Mr. Santa Claus at places and just handing out all these gifts. And I gave it to one of my little nieces and handed her a gift, stood back to watch her open it, and she handed me a little gift, and I stood back to watch her open it. And I stood back and she wasn't opening it, and then she started to cry. I said, why are you crying? You haven't opened it yet to know whether or not you like it. She said, you didn't open yours. And I went, oh, I forgot. It's a reciprocal universe. If you want to keep the energy flowing, you do what you need to do. So I opened the gift and she smiled again. Then she opened her gift and she smiled. And I never forgot that lesson that a little niece taught me. And it was that it's not enough just to be that I'm giving you something and I can't wait to see the smile on your face. It's enough to keep the energy flowing constantly. So be ready to give, be ready to receive. You need both of them, because if you stop one or the other, you have stopped the circuit of energy. And when we talk about raising up, make up your mind, it is a shift in consciousness, and that's what Stratton Smith says in the 4T class. You don't change your financial situation when you improve your prosperity ideas. You shift your consciousness, and everything around you changes in a very powerful and positive way. But that's what it takes, is that shift in consciousness to say, okay, I see things a little bit differently. And that's what that niece taught me that day, was change your consciousness. Think about keeping this whole flow going. So, and you guys are going through a minister search. We just finished ours at my church. We've been 11 months without a minister. We are pleased in that we have one who comes next week. And we have such a structure in the church now that we had a change when the candidates came through in January, February. One of the 3 dropped out. Another one, weirdly, another person applied after the applications were closed. And we are used to having a really experienced minister. And this one was somebody who was going to graduate in June. But we took a look and we said, wait a minute. We have a strong structure here at the church. We could take a new minister because the structure already works. In the past, we have not had the structure, so we needed a strong minister to come in and fix everything. We're not broken. So we did the interviews, and the new person came out on top when everything was said and done with the board and all the conversations and all. And we're delighted because we have this wonderful new minister coming in. We accidentally got her husband along with her. His name is Richard McDeasy. And he's head of music for Unity International. So, now we didn't hire him. We aren't expecting him to be in there to play. I mean, our music director right away went, what? You got Richard McDeasy coming in? He's just moving here with Paul. It's going to be okay, Calm down, John. It's okay. So now John's beginning to get the idea that with Richard McDeasy in Chesapeake, Virginia, near Virginia Beach, that all the musicians, the Karen Taylor Goods and the Janice Stanfields and the Faith Riveras of the world, when they're doing their tours, are going to make sure they come and stop by to say hi. And so we'll get to see them a little more often. So we like that. So that was an accidental extra that we got out of the person we selected as minister. So you're going to get lots of accidental extras when you finally settle on a minister, because by the time you settle on one, you have this wonderful structure set. I mean, look at the power of this group of people here. You guys are still here. You're flourishing. I mean, I've seen churches that have ministers that have been there a long time, don't have half the number of people you guys have here today. This is a wonderful community, a wonderful family. You guys are doing great. So now when somebody comes in new to say, okay, I'm here, you go, great, fit in. So when we talk about abundance and prosperity, there you are. It doesn't have to show up specifically as money. It shows up in all those aspects of your life. Because there's love in this room. There's peace and joy in this room. There's music in this room in all kinds. So make up your mind. That's all you got to do. To raise up your life, make up your mind. Decide that your consciousness is, the kingdom of heaven is within me. Ye are God's. All the works that I do, you shall do, and greater works than these shall you do. So when you go out of here, don't go sit on a couch and watch 17 hours of movies this afternoon. Go out and do miracles for somebody else. You're capable of it. And if you haven't been aware of that before, be aware of it from this moment on. Now I'm going to leave you with my poem, Let Out the Angel. We're going to have a good time with this one. This is one that's a title track from the CD. And Richard McBeasy and I have actually done this together at the International Conference, where he got on his keyboard and did a percussion background for this. And we annoyed a group of 20-year-olds in the ballroom next door. They said the two old guys were making too much noise for their ballroom. All right, Richard, we get it. So here we go. And if you can clap along with me. I can find the beat here. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, here we go. Once upon a time in a sleepy little town was a little bitty angel, and it came right down. Landed in the middle of the old town square. Out came the mayor saying, I declare, do you know what it is? Mr. Mayor said it's got wings and a robe and a light on its head. Don't know what it is, said the sheriff with a grin, but I got a little cell, it'll fit right in. Let out the angel, let it out now. Why you got it locked inside anyhow? Got no right, no earthly excuse. Let out the angel, let it loose. Out came the judge in the middle of the night. Glasses and wrinkles and a beard so white. I came out running once the town bell rang. What's here incarcerated is an alien thing. Call out to the Pentagon, call Washington. Call out to that area they call 51. If we don't hurry up and get rid of its kind, it'll mess with our hearts, it'll mess with our minds. Let out the angel, let it out now. Why you got it locked inside anyhow? Got no right, no earthly excuse. Let out the angel, let it loose. They brought out some tongs and a custom minivan. They brought out an antiseptic antimatter can. And just as they brought out 20 tasers in a stack, a little girl yelled out at them from way in the back. What are you guys doing? Can't you people see? That's a little angel like my mama calls me. Don't the halo and the robe and the wings help you decide? And all the townspeople rushed up and they cried, let out the angel, let it out now. Why you got it locked inside anyhow? Got no right, no earthly excuse. Let out the angel, let it loose. Now how about you when you're feeling kind of down? Don't you sometimes act like that weird little town? Always got an angel any day, any night. Why wrap it up and close it up and keep it out of sight? You don't perceive your power till your little child yells. You got God within inside of yourself. Your logical mind has a misinformed view. The angel that's there inside is you. Let out the angel, let it out now. Why you got it locked inside anyhow? Got no right, no earthly excuse.